Well, welcome. Tonight, we're getting near the end of the silly season. The voting will happen very shortly. Everybody's got their opinions, and in the last, I was going to say the last few weeks, but it seems like the last year, there's been a lot of food for discussion. So why don't we start with introductions, and then we'll talk about the election.
Christine Crane from the Milford Democratic Town Committee and Drinking Liberally.
Rand Barthel from the Mendon Democratic Town Committee and 350 Massachusetts.
Carolyn Barthel from the Mendon Democratic Town Committee and 350 Massachusetts.
Okay, before we start, explain to us what Drinking Liberally is.
It's a political discussion group of like-minded, progressive people getting together to talk about issues and politics, promoting democracy one pint at a time.
But it seemed like there was a lot more food and discussion than drinking when I went down.
And it's not all about drinking. It's
I was
obviously
going to say,
play on words.
I was pleased to see the interaction and that nobody threw food at me when I talked. So, and 350. Did you leave 10 degrees out? Is that the piece you left for the conservatives?
No,
350 Massachusetts is a statewide network of climate activists from the Berkshires to the Cape. And we focus on state issues and how the state can deal with climate action.
But the name 350.
350 refers to 350 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is a level that some of the climate scientists think would be a safe level if we could get back down to it. We're at 400 parts per million.
I was going to say, it would be nice
rapidly.
if we could get there.
It would be nice if we could get there, and we will not see that in our lifetimes. It will most likely take centuries to get back down to that level, even if we were to drastically reduce carbon emissions starting tomorrow.
And we do want to talk about the environment because, all kidding aside, the election will be over at the beginning of November, but the issues with climate will still be here for us and unfortunately for our children and maybe our grandchildren. But I want to put you on the spot. Every time we have political candidates come on, I start and finish the show with a basic question. So I have a feeling you're not supporting Donald Trump very strongly.
You have a correct feeling about that.
So if you were to play the role of Hillary, and I said, I'm from Milford, why should I vote for you?
Okay. So I'm not going to actually speak as if I were Hillary, but I'm going to speak for Hillary. I guess I'll try anyway. Hillary Clinton has a long history of service to this country and a long history of experience with the federal government in lots of different ways. She has had a catbird seat in the White House for 8 years while her husband was president, and she then served for 8 years in the Senate, and then 4 years as Secretary of State. She knows how the federal government works inside out and backwards, and therefore is prepared to understand what is possible by way of making things better. And she also has a long history of advocacy for progressive things, most notably the welfare of women and children, which has been her number one focus, even from the days when she was First Lady of Arkansas. And she took a year out of law school and went door to door in, I think it was New Bedford, Mass, to try to document why kids with disabilities were not being educated. And that led to legislation that mandates that education be provided for kids in wheelchairs. And so she's got an approach to change that is incremental and practical, that looks at problems that real people have and tries to figure out a way that we could address those. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need in government. And I'm not going to. I think that too much of this campaign has been about the negative side of why Donald Trump would be an utterly awful choice for president, and we haven't focused enough on the opportunity that Hillary Clinton represents.
And I'll say thank you, because it's the first time I've asked a question and gotten a straight answer about why I should vote for Hillary. Too many times, the minute I say, why should, well, Trump stinks.
Trump
It's like, wait a
bad,
minute,
yeah.
I'm not asking about Trump.
Right.
You know, if I ask people who are supporting Trump, I get immediately, she lies, she's this, she's that. And it's like, wait a minute. I really don't like the approach of, you suck, but I suck less, so vote for me.
Right.
You know, I want to look up to my CEO.
We would hope that our president would be somebody we could look up to.
And I've been having a hard time lately when I see our president go abroad and apologize, calling me lazy. That bothers me. You know, maybe it doesn't have to be a Pollyanna, but I want somebody to lead, to make me feel like he's got my back. But I asked Rand a question. Would you add anything to that, or?
I think that she actually was interested in children and families even before she was first lady. She was the governor's wife. It went back to her, her college days, and or just beyond after she graduated from college, and she worked for Children's Defense Fund. Yeah, there we go. And so, I think it's something that she could relate to. That she. And as a woman, with knowing that she was going to, this was her sphere of knowledge. She grew up as a single child, so she was keenly aware of what was going on in her family, and that was, a very, very basic thing. And the fact that she is she's consistent. And I think that's has a lot to do with her upbringing, that she is she's steady on her feet. Her mother taught her, said, when she came into from some incident with some child who called her a name, and our mother said, "You go right back out there and you talk back. You defend yourself," and she did that. And so she realized that when you're down and out, you pick yourself back up and you get back on your feet and you go at it and you stay on task.
You bring up a couple points, but let me point blank ask you: is her position supporting women strong enough? Christine, what do you think?
Strong enough how? I mean, I think that
I struggle when. I think of the Clinton administration. If anybody in the senior position in any company I know did what he did, they would have been shot. They would have been fired. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
if they were caught, let me
Granted.
tell you, that happens a lot. Let's not kid ourselves. Sexual harassment
Yes.
is prevalent, unfortunately. It needs to get more publicity. It needs to be out there more. College campuses, there's a lot of hush-hush. Look at the sex abuse going on. So I think that those issues need to be continued to be brought up and have a dialogue about. I think Hillary would support legislative change. What that would look like, I don't know. But I
And
think
see, I have a totally jaundiced view. I have two daughters. So, when I think of somebody in a senior position having an affair, my world, they get fired. There's no question.
And you know what? Bill is not on the ballot. Hillary is.
Yeah, but now
Why should Hillary be, are you suggesting that Hillary should be blamed for the things
No,
Bill did?
But when Bill did his thing, the position I saw her take is to call Monica Lewinsky a Looney Tune or some silly names. And, candidly, Rand, that bothered me, because I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute, who's the adult in this situation? I don't care about Bill. Bill is history. I thought it was wrong when Hillary said, I'll bring Bill in to help with the economy. I'm like, well,
I'm hoping she doesn't do that,
I
actually.
mean, yeah, he had his time in
Yeah.
the 1990s.
And
That's
that was a
right.
very different time.
And I was young, thin, and had hair back then. So it's a different world. But I'm not convinced yet.
So on that one topic that she happened to make perhaps somewhat of an irrational comment at a point where her husband has been exposed to the nation,
The world.
are you going to define her by that one statement?
No, but that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
That wouldn't define her for me by that one statement.
As a father, it bothered me. But I can't really say I understand a woman's perspective, because guess what? I'm not there.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to understand a woman's perspective,
it's
just
just-
understand a person's feelings about what they're going through on something like that.
I mean,
To
imagine
maybe-
the level of distress this must have caused.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and so, you know, perhaps, you know, it is not surprising that an intemperate remark or two would pass her lips after
Well, that
this kind
pressure
of,
and that
under
yeah.
the kind of goldfish bowl that this all happened in.
Right.
Sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, we all suffered because now you had to answer a question to my 11-year-old about this long discussion, is that
Right.
sexual activity or not? And yeah,
The whole nation's attention and time was wasted for about
Wasted.
2
but
years.
now,
on that.
Years.
I guess my question is that an isolated, is it an outlier? I mean, as you look, do you feel
mean
comfortable?
Hillary's response.
Yeah, Hillary in general supporting women's causes.
She's advocating for parental leave, for 12 weeks of parental leave. That's certainly a good start. We could do a whole lot better than that. There are countries where women get much longer, and parents
But
get
Carolyn, help
much
me
longer
understand,
than
when
that.
you say 12 weeks, just about everybody I know gets 13. Because you're not supposed to, but
12 weeks is the minimum.
okay.
So companies are at liberty to do more.
Is that what what she's advocating for is more? Because when I heard 12 weeks,
Well, I think it's meant to be
That's
paid, isn't
FMLA,
it?
Yeah.
and that covers under that umbrella, right, of FMLA. You know,
so at the end, do you feel comfortable with how she's supporting women's?
I feel comfortable,
Needs?
and I think that if we want her to do more, we need to
Need
speak
to
out.
There are other issues on which she has staked positions. Climate change will be one of them. We'll be talking about it, where she has staked positions that move in the right direction, but too slowly. And we are going to be
Sure.
on January 1st, 2017. A lot of us are going to be beginning the process of trying to work with her to convince her / pressure her to do more, and we'll be working to try to clear some of the deadwood out of Congress to make it possible for her to do more.
And obviously, I'm struggling because I just have this fear that I have to walk into the booth in November holding my nose, because I have a hard time voting for either candidate right now. I'm one of those ones in the middle, and I don't want to be. I want to vote for somebody I feel good on.
Yeah.
I would not vote for Hillary because she's a woman. I
I
wouldn't
didn't
vote
support her
against
last
her.
time 'cause she was a woman.
I'm saying I wouldn't vote
yeah.
against her because she's a woman. I wouldn't vote for her because
Right.
she's a woman. You know, I really want to understand different perspectives.
Well, her website is very thorough. I have to confess I'm not thoroughly aware of all her positions, but I did look at the climate issue, and she's very thorough about it. She covers a lot of territory. They're really good steps in the right direction, and we're going to have to push her even harder. So I mean, that in and of itself is a huge difference between the two candidates.
The one thing I don't think anybody could question is her knowledge of the system.
She has encyclopedic knowledge of the system.
I mean, she's been there for decades. She's grown up in a political world. You know, and I hate to refer to the other candidate, but when Trump said everybody in Washington's stupid, the Mexican government is smart, a year ago, I sat there and said, no, wait a minute. I've never started off a new job calling my board or my management team stupid
Right.
and then wanting to work with them.
Yeah.
I mean, just a theory I don't understand.
Well, and then it's things like not knowing what the nuclear triad was when he was asked a softball question about that, and not knowing
No, we're for
about
nuclear
Brexit,
power.
and not knowing what Brexit was 3 weeks before it happened, and why it might be important.
Or not knowing that Putin was already in the
Crimea.
Was already in the Crimea,
had been in Ukraine
yeah,
for 2
so
years.
I mean but not only is the lack of knowledge, he doesn't seem to want to educate himself though either, and that's what Joe Biden had mentioned. Is that perhaps his efforts sometimes come off a little misguided, but he has made no effort. Hillary, on the other hand, makes it her job to become informed, and I'll give her that. She's willing to learn. She shifted her position when Bernie Sanders kind of pushed her on some of those things.
Pushed. Is that a
Bulldoze.
nice way of saying dragged to the left?
Oh, but then she
Yeah.
changed her position. She was willing to make that leap. She was willing to evolve, if you will, And on the debate, I was impressed with the fact that when they tried to kind of poke her on the email, she said, I take responsibility for that. I would not have to do that again. I'll give her credit. She owned it, and that's a lot I can say.
Has she owned it though? I mean,
Well, at that moment she did, and how much, do you
no,
own?
but I mean realistically, I've never felt that she really owned. I mean, you got people.
What would that look like then for her to fully own it for you?
To get up and say what I did was absolutely wrong,
But
and
didn't
I
she do
lied.
that at the debate?
No, and I lied to Congress, because she did. I mean, you got a congressional subpoena. You got a congressional directive saying, do not destroy emails, and yet her aides did. To me, she falls, she picks on Richard Nixon, but she falls right into, to me, the same trap, that she appears that she's above the law. To this day, I believe if Nixon, I've said it before, if he had gotten up in front of the public and said, I screwed up, what I did was wrong, please forgive me, I don't think he would have ever been impeached. Americans don't kick people when they're down.
Yeah.
But when you give the impression that you're above the law, I'm still struggling with this.
And I don't know enough about that situation
Yeah.
to fully believe
I
that-
actually want to go and fact check that.
Yeah.
Because I also am not familiar with that particular
Okay.
aspect of it.
But I
I'm
saw
convinced
that they're getting 5 people are getting immunity. 2 of them were accused of destroying email after Congress said they wanted those emails.
Well, and I think that may have been, if I did actually read the FBI report. I didn't actually make it through all 58 pages of it, but a lot of it is as interesting as watching paint dry. But what I understand from that was that there were some emails that were destroyed that, at that point, the mail server was being hosted by a commercial mail server hosting company. It was no longer a machine sitting in the basement in Chappaqua. And the people who, I think the situation was that these were emails that they had basically already turned over all of the emails that they thought were work-related, and they thought that there were no more emails that needed to be preserved. And so they asked the company to destroy those emails, and then and there was somebody at the company who didn't carry out that order, and then realized later that they hadn't carried that order, and then carried the order out post this thing. So in other words, we have to understand, one of the things that comes through in the FBI report is Hillary is not technically savvy, and relied on technologically savvy, and relied upon her staff to do things. And so when, for example, she played no role whatsoever in picking which emails were work-related and which were not. She simply asked them to go and find all the work-related and turn them over. And that's basically the way she operated.
See, that's where I have a hard time. Rand, if I came to you and said, I'd like to drug test you for heroin. What would you say to me?
I'd say, show me a warrant.
Give you a warrant. Why would you care?
Yeah.
If somebody came to me and said, it's really important, I want to drug test you for cocaine or heroin or fentanyl or any nasties, I'll pee in a cup. You're making a $500 donation to the local charity just to, I'm going to take my pound of flesh out of you for doing it, but I'm not worried because I've never done heroin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. I would have, when you say what would it look like, if she had said these are personal, we're going to have a neutral party, define neutral, but somebody that can look and go through them before they're destroyed, I would have felt a lot better. Because then I'd say, just like you, are you worried I'm going to find heroin in your? No.
No.
So if it's important, I'll pee in a cup. You're on your own.
But didn't she essentially do that if she had people, not her, look and just say?
Well,
"Hey,
they were her lawyers and her
Okay.
staff members, though.
So
Okay, fair
And
enough.
so there was a certain amount of
Bias.
Well, of
sorting
course.
these things through, and and that all comes from the original mistake of deciding to have a private email server.
and again, to me, I won't believe that there was any malfeasance intended. I think it was just arrogance.
Or just
I think at that point, I mean, given that Colin Powell also had a private server,
Did he have a server, or did he use his own account?
private
he
email?
used a private email, a
Private
commercial
email
email
account.
account.
So-
and you can debate about whether that is less or more secure than a private server.
I don't
So
think
in
either
that
one's
way,
good.
Well, email is not a good medium
No, it was
for
poor
dealing with
form on a
classified
number of
information.
Well,
Well,
this is
levels
why
for a
they spend
period of
so much
time.
time encrypting, and it's like phone
Right.
calls.
Right.
You don't make classified calls
Right.
on your normal,
Phone.
Apple.
You use a scrambled phone.
You use this, but
Right. But the thing is that something else that comes through this is that it was actually the case that Hillary and her staff understood that email is not a good medium for classified information. They actually did try to avoid allowing any classified information to creep into these emails. And what you see is that it's extremely difficult to prevent things that are supposed to be classified but aren't properly marked, and then they get sent to you and they get in an email chain, and first thing you know, they're being sent around. And so this was not any kind of, there was clearly no ill intent here.
Yeah,
And
I don't think there was
and
any
a lack
malfeasance.
of there was a lack of appreciation of how difficult it is to keep your email stream from getting polluted by information that's
But
not
now-
supposed to be there.
as we look
And-
at things going on, I mean, I got a kick out of Trump saying he was smart because he didn't pay any taxes.
And that really speaks to the value system that animates him.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's
all about me.
It's all about.
But if he had answered at that debate to say, and Hillary, you and your compatriots created these loopholes.
Well-
If you want to fix them, because he came out, the one thing he said that resonated was, for 36 years, what have you done? You haven't fixed any of these loopholes.
And it's not as though Hillary
not-
was all
It's not-
powerful.
it's not
during that
her.
time. It's not her.
No, but
I mean,
it's an indictment of the political establishment that we have.
both parties.
Yeah, I say
Both
establishment,
parties.
I'm not saying Democrats or Republicans, because both of them have had a hand in writing these laws.
To be sure.
So now the question is, if he had said on TV, you created these legal loopholes, how many Americans facing an ability to take a tax deduction would say, nah? I would have
No.
felt better.
Well, and to this day, I mean, all we know about is this tax deduction that he took, that he took based on an almost $1 billion loss. that he
Loss, a
reported.
write-off on.
And so we have to ask. I mean, what we don't know is whether that is a real loss, or to what extent it's a paper loss or some kind of phony
Or
loss
debt
that
loss
I mean,
that he borrowed.
basically, I mean, because my point of view about I mean, Trump is a pathological liar. He lies about things that he doesn't even have to lie about, and
Yeah, but don't they
and
both?
So, no.
I
Trump is on a whole other
Yeah,
galaxy
he's on a different
than-
level
than Hillary.
completely.
You know, it's funny. When I hear the other side,
Yeah.
they bring up, she can't even just say, I got pneumonia. I'm a normal human being. I got to lie about it. So I hear it both
But
sides.
did she lie about
She did-
that, or just took a while to come out? I mean,
She was just
I mean,
going to
come
try.
on.
She was just going to power through it.
Right.
You know,
Is that
I
lying,
I
or is-
really get that. Women are not supposed to show any kind of weakness.
That's true.
You can't do that. Otherwise, you're shown out.
Shame on us if
Yes.
my best friend, the person who has supported me my entire life and been there, a hell of a lot stronger than I have, my darling bride, if I expect her to be on some superhuman pedestal, now my kids always did, because when they were sick, they went to her, and
Yeah.
but I would hope that whether it was him or her, if they got pneumonia, you could sit there and say, okay, you got sick.
And
It-
but
it's-
it's-
that's not what- that's not what women do.
But take a look at the way Trump and his surrogates have tried to make hay out of
I
this.
know, everything.
You'd hope that would be the case, and it isn't. We live in a culture where there's a lot of just plain
nastiness.
paternalism and frankly misogyny.
But you know what scares me?
And Hillary is doing something that has not been done before. She's actually asking to be made the most powerful person in the country as a woman. And that's the first time, and here's the thing, there are a lot of people who find that threatening
Because she's a woman?
because
Yes,
she's a woman.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of
With
people
Obama
out there.
being black, I mean, it's
There's a
the
lot of
same
people
thing.
out there
Yeah.
who actually, when you get right down to it, they're not comfortable with that.
And
Because
that's
it
sad.
violates the. It is sad.
Yeah.
That's
It absolutely
truly
is.
sad. 'cause
It
like I
is
said,
absolutely sad.
This is probably going to get me in trouble. I would not vote for Hillary because she's a woman. But I would not vote for her.
I wouldn't
because she's
either.
a woman.
Yep.
To me,
The gender has nothing to do with
No.
the role.
Yeah.
And should not.
Right.
I mean, you would hope that we've gone far enough in our.
Some of us have,
We haven't.
Al, but not all.
Not as a country.
No.
No, we have
And
not.
Carolyn-
And so that's why she tried to power through that pneumonia. That's what women have to do if they are going to, and I can appreciate that she, I thought, well, all right, I'm taking the antibiotics, I'm getting through it, and it was just more than she could handle.
See, you said something that we haven't seen Trump's tax returns.
Right.
To me, the vision I have of his tax returns are the same vision I have of those emails she destroyed. If you're not trying to hide something, why are you hiding it? Like, realistically, if there was nothing in those tax returns, just make them public. Or pick two people, one on either side, that are
go
above
read them.
reproach. You read them and come out and tell us if there's something ugly there. Plain and simple. And now, if he came out and said, I haven't paid taxes because the establishment has given us the loopholes not to, but I will fix them.
But then on the other hand, of course, he would then have to own a nearly $1 billion loss when his primary claim to fame as a
Is-
presidential candidate
business savvy.
is
A
his
good
business savvy.
businessman.
And so he would have to.
But he's
then
owning
have-
that. I mean,
he would then have to
whether
have
he
that.
wants to or not. Let's face it, the casino went poopy.
It did.
Whether it's like arguing whether Donald Trump is worth 10 million or 6 billion, 10 billion or 6. I'm
But
like
Al,
laughing.
Al, you're trying to be logical. You're dealing with a man who's not logical and kind of delusional when you think about his self-image. And I know more about the world than generals. I know more
I
about
alone
tax.
can
I
help you.
alone can help you. I know more about the tax laws than tax attorneys. Really?
And again, the tax laws. If your accountant came to you and said there was a legal loophole that you could save, in our case, it would not be $100 million.
No, it wouldn't
You
be.
can save $1,000. Honestly?
If I
I'd
could
take
do it
it.
honestly,
Of course
I
we
take
would.
it.
All
of us
Sure.
would.
But
And see, I would feel better if he said that. Hey guys, I haven't paid taxes.
He
since-"
doesn't tell the truth. He doesn't know how.
Okay.
I mean, come on, he said he can't show his tax returns because he's being audited. Everybody else that has been interviewed, that are experts in this, say that's not the case. So he's not being truthful about
There's
that.
something there, and candidly, I don't think it's illegal because he'd be nailed by the IRS before this. You know, before last year.
I think it's just that he's not as wealthy as he claims he is. He's probably got more debt.
Or
and,
he
or he
owes
has
an
connections.
unseemly large amount of money to foreign banks and
Yeah.
interests.
yeah.
But you know something? Again, he claims he's worth $10 billion. Let's say it's blowhard and he's only worth $3 or $4 billion. To me, that's not a deadbeat.
No, but it
But-
destroys his image of himself, and that would reflect
Does it-
badly on
yeah.
him. But
If
that's
he-
in his world.
If he had taken his inheritance and put it in stock index funds, he would be a lot richer than he is.
Seriously, then
Yeah.
$4 to $8 billion?
Yep. Yep. You're talking about appreciation over 40 years.
No, I understand, but I don't know how many of your friends
not
are
as
worth
flashy.
billions. None of mine
No,
are.
none of mine are
I
either.
don't
So
know.
I
Billion
can't say
friends.
he's not, you know,
He has not been a
successful.
savvy business person in doing
He's taken
in,
a lot of
in,
risks.
in real
I'd
estate.
like to be an unsavvy business person and be worth a few billion
Well,
dollars.
if you're going to start with 200 million, then that gives you a lot of room to screw up and still be
Land on your feet,
be very
so to
wealthy.
speak.
And it's kind of a relative thing. It's sort of, I guess the argument I'm making is that, did he do the thing that was going to make him the most money? And the answer is no. And of course, then there's the whole long trail of lawsuits and
Not
people
paying people.
people he failed to pay and
The
all of that.
only thing I will absolutely believe for a long time is he is brilliant at campaigning. Because somehow he ran a presidential campaign for almost no money. Right?
He got the
Yeah,
media
He's
to
a
do it
train
for him.
wreck.
Yeah,
He-
yeah.
Well, but
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I'm stunned because everybody talks about you have to raise $1 billion. And this silly goose raised almost nothing until after
right.
the Republican convention.
That's right, because he's
by
so
making goofy
outlandish.
statements.
He's so outlandish that the media just can't help but follow him like a puppy.
And that stuns me.
Well, it sells papers for them. They don't care.
Well, I think it's TV.
Well,
Because
yeah.
the New York
All of
Times
it.
and all don't seem to be really Trump
So
supporters.
TV, but the
Well-
point is that it sells. It
No,
sells.
but now he certainly, even though they're not supporting him, even though they're now pounding him, he gives them something to write about.
Which is true.
And what sells newspapers for them is, it can be either way, and it could
Yeah,
still sell
Donald said
newspapers.
this, or-
Donald said this. Donald said that. Today, the Donald Show went to such and such, and they did this, and it was completely outrageous.
Yeah, because now you're even seeing women come out that were on his TV show
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
saying
yeah.
that he made sexist comments and.
Really, I'm
Oh,
shocked.
absolutely. And
See,
it-
unfortunately, I got to tell you, that is what most people are saying. And it really annoys me because those are, and again, I'm jaundiced, those are
being
some of his
facetious.
daughters. And they're saying, of
Sorry.
course, it's Donald Trump. Wait a minute, no, of course. If you demean some young lady, there's no of course, that's somebody's daughter. And again, I'll fully admit, I do not have an objective
Right.
view. Because I think that could be my daughter.
it has to do with common decency.
Well,
and
it has
res-
to
and
do with his
respect.
character, his moral
And
compass.
and
is
he
screwed
doesn't
up.
have that.
No.
He doesn't know what that is.
We're going back 20 years for that Miss Universe. This man has not changed. This is who he is.
He's 70 years old. He's not going to change now.
He's a bully.
He is what he is.
And he would run roughshod over anybody or anything that gets in his way.
Or disagrees with him.
Period.
He's the American version of Putin.
Yes. From a strength point of view, absolutely. From a self-centered driving point of view, absolutely.
Only thankfully he keeps his shirt on.
Well, I was amazed when I saw the ad when I was in Moscow because it played well where they showed Putin with no shirt on and a black panther or a puma, I can't remember.
Right.
And then they showed Obama with a little teeny puppy dog. I couldn't understand the Russian.
Right, but the
But
picture
the
was
video-
obvious.
Matter.
uh-huh.
Picture was
You're
obvious.
sitting there saying, okay,
And-
what's the message?
Right, and of course, Russia is a basket case. In terms of what's happening to the Russian people under Putin's rule,
Yeah.
it's
They've gone backwards.
it's going way backwards,
Yeah.
and the ruble has plunged, and the economy is contracting, and all
oil-
of the democratic
$100
liberties
oil.
that they thought they would have gone.
Yeah, we ran $100 oil, kept Venezuela pumped up.
Yep.
Even Saudi.
Yep.
You know, a lot of the Gulf
Right.
nations.
Sure.
$30 oil.
Sure, but what's also happening is that there are, investors are pulling out of Russia. It's not a safe place to do business
Yes.
because
There-
it's a kleptocracy.
Well, I mean, when I used to go there in the 80s, the Soviet Union, I could walk around. We stayed at the Metropole or the Intourist. You'd walk down to Red Square. Well, night, never. So there's a cop every other block.
Right.
I don't think I would do that.
I wouldn't
last
recommend it.
2 times I went,
Yeah.
when we went out at night, it was with people that I was visiting
Yes.
in a group.
Right.
Because I wanted to go shopping downtown.
Right.
Had to get a new Russian hat, my new shop got. But I wouldn't walk around alone.
Right.
Whereas in the old days,
Yeah.
I never worried. So you trust her.
Well, let's qualify that, okay? Hillary has not always told the truth about things. Her PolitiFact stats are better than most politicians, but she doesn't always tell the truth. However, I think we can count on her not to blow up the world. I think we can count on her not to destroy the economy by trying to negotiate our debt down or something. I think we can count on her to try to move the peanut forward in terms of things like health care and the welfare of children and education and things like that. I think she will try to move the peanut forward, not fast enough, on climate change.
And she'll have a reasonable relationship with a lot of other nations,
She
with our
already
allies, and she'll
established
deal.
that.
I think she'll do.
And yes, and she
she's
will-
not ready to push the button.
You know what's the scariest thing? That's the most reasonable argument for voting for her that I've heard to this day. You know, because you've got the people
it's
way
what
out
you- what-
saying,
it's
you know,
what can
we're
you
not
trust her to
worthy.
do?
She's perfect, and you
Yeah.
got the other people saying she's not, and you're painting a reasonable picture. You know, and yeah, that's legit.
Okay.
I mean, she has lied.
Yep.
She has not done a lot of what I wish she would do. I still struggle with her position when she attacked an intern. Right? I mean, there's little things that still bother me.
Oh, that's
but
the
she's not.
Lewinsky thing.
Mark
Yeah,
Lewinsky.
that doesn't bother me at all.
No.
And what was she
No,
supposed to
it's
do?
just-
Have her over for tea and cookies?
No, but
Intern
don't
is an
attack.
adult, but
Yeah, I hear you. But
I mean, I think that's a small bump.
Yeah,
Well, but
you
then
know,
again, you know, the whole nonsense through. But on the other hand, I don't think either Hillary or anybody else could go into the bathroom, open their shirt, and see a big S. You know, for
No.
super person that
Right.
they're
No,
perfect.
no.
So-
Find me a politician
Yeah.
that wouldn't.
Well, that's
have
what I'm
some of
saying.
these
There's nobody that can
blemishes.
open the shirt
Yeah.
and say I'm Superman or Superwoman.
Right.
So
Trump is saying that.
I alone can fix it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can
alone.
fix it.
Which is almost a direct
I get-
quote of Mussolini, actually, who said, "I alone can help you."
it's.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people tell me the one thing they absolutely cannot forgive Donald Trump for is forcing them to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well,
You know, because today I believe if Democratic Party had a Bernie-like, and God, I vote for a socialist, but if they had a Bernie running, this would not be a contest. This would not even be a contest. You wouldn't have 1 or 2 points separating. I think
Well,
so
actually,
many
it's
people.
better than that now. Now that once the debate was over.
But
it's still a
It's
lot
still
closer
close.
than I
Still-
would like it to be.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
same thing, if a Rand Paul or somebody more central on the Republican side, I think they'd clean Hillary's clock.
Probably.
You know, so you sit there and say both parties have gone off the deep end, you know, and here we are. So it ought to be interesting. Do you want to do a prediction?
Hillary by less of a margin than I would like to see.
Yeah. I'd like to see a bigger margin because then it means that we could take the Senate back.
And also,
that's different.
Well, and also, I want to see the kind of racism and sexism and xenophobia that Trump has re-legitimized, I want to see that unre-legitimized. You know, I want it to go back to being the case that you can't just voice openly racist attitudes and retain social respectability.
And if it's a tight race, that the message that comes across is that kind of nasty talk is acceptable.
What message are we giving our kids when we are trying to deal with bullying in school, and yet this man here is able to call people's names, and people are supporting that and trying to justify it?
Well, you know, it's interesting. This weekend, I had a long discussion with my inherited son, student from Holy Cross, who now is part of our family. And he's a Black American. You know, and it's funny because first thing we talked about is this whole African American title. I said, I'm not even going to call you that. You're an American. End of story. I don't call myself a Euro-American.
Right.
You know, you're an American.
Right.
But when he talked about the attitudes, it's amazing. You think you've gone past some of this nonsense. You know, that in the 60s, you read about these attitudes, and I thought we had grown past it. But again, I'm not Black, so I can't tell you
That's right.
what it's like. I can listen to him, but to say I really understand it,
You can't.
I can't. I just have to trust. So, you know, the thing that stop and frisk is not racist. He looked at me and said, seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, 85% are non-whites that are stopped. So, again, I'd have more respect if you came out and said, yep, it's racist. And it's the only way in the inner city we're going to knock crime down. Then have the debate, is it worth it? You know, if Trump had come out and said, I'm going to stop anybody coming in this country that can't be properly vetted, I think I could support that.
Didn't he say that?
No, he said, I'm going to stop Muslims.
Right. Which is,
That can't be vetted.
But it doesn't matter.
yeah.
You know, it reminds me of back in the
That's
60s
where you're-
when they said you can't have one of them there Catholics running the country. The Pope will move into the White House.
Yep. It's not any different from that.
And to me, that's exactly what. Tell me there's a legitimate security issue. And if you can't vet the person, you're not going to let them into your home.
Well, and show me how you're going to deal with the security issue with a minimum of intrusion into people's human rights.
Yeah, balancing their civil rights
You know,
with
because,
the protection of
because
the country.
Trump has shown absolutely no interest in human rights.
No.
Zero.
And he doesn't believe in free press. You know, he
Apparently
doesn't.
not.
You know, he's anything that gets in his way, he's ready to squash. That scares
well,
the
it's
heck
rigged
out of me.
against him.
I'm sorry.
It's rigged against him.
When you
Every,
don't
Oh, yeah,
get your
everything.
way,
Right.
you cry foul.
well, no, I mean everything I hear is it's rigged.
Right.
That's right. That's his.
Now,
That's his excuse.
do I believe? I mean, I love flipping between, you know, 41 and 40, CNN
Oh, okay.
and Fox.
Yeah.
Because it's like having you all here and then having Eddie in the crowd in.
Right.
I mean, it's, wait a minute, aren't you saying the same thing, only you're changing the color? Somewhere between the two is probably the accurate
Reality.
data. Because I listen to Fox, and, you know, Hillary is just the devil incarnate. I listen to CNN, and everything's Donald's bad. So I figure somewhere in between is probably reality. And that the same thing hits me with the newspapers.
Let me tell you,
I think-
I would take George Bush W. over Trump. And I didn't
Absolutely.
like him at all.
I would too.
But I would take him.
But see,
over
again,
And he
There was a
said,
modicum of respect for our constitutional system of
Yeah.
government. Not enough, but some.
see, again, that's why I say if you had a centralist, you know, Bush 3, the smarter Bush,
Yeah.
right? I think if he was running, Hillary'd have a real hard time.
The father?
No,
Jeb.
Jeb.
Oh.
Yeah,
Because I always laughed, though, and I said, what is he going to run for a campaign? I'm the smarter Bush? I'm the better Bush?
right.
You know, but
That's right.
he was
The new
Rand
improved
Paul,
Bush?
more towards the middle. I mean, people like Creepy Ted, he just creeped me out. I don't want
Yeah.
to think of him,
Yeah.
but even a Marco Rubio, as far as he is, he's a lot closer to the middle than a Trump.
Well,
Well,
he has some
just-
he has some grasp on the world of sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I said earlier, I do stand by, I could wish, I read an article just yesterday that if this were just a complete slam of Trump, then that might be a guarantee, that would be a way for us as a country to have a referendum on civility and respect and the rule of law and a whole bunch of other things that we actually have civilization, that we need to have civilization, and if we don't slam him with this election, then we will see a lot more of this nastiness. There will be a permission there that we'll have to deal with it.
Do you believe that? Do you
Yes, I
really
do.
think he could do some of the silly things he's talking about?
Yeah, I do.
It's not that he could do all of them.
He's gonna
it's
try.
that
He would try.
He would do enough, and he would
Okay.
set a tone.
Okay.
The tone
That
is
that
really-
that
Rand,
this
I'll
kind of
give you
brown
that one.
shirt thinking is acceptable and mainstream.
And see, that, again, you're hitting, and what I'm thinking of is reality. He could try.
Yeah.
He could set a tone. But I guess I have more faith in the American people that, wait a minute, there's a limit to what we're going to let you do.
But the powers, the executive powers that the president has are huge, 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 and we wouldn't know what hit us if Trump were
Well,
elected.
appointing a Supreme Court justice,
Well, see, that's the long
that's
term.
exactly, that could do long-term damage.
Well, I mean, it'll do long-term change when you start saying you're going to affect how the Supreme Court,
Right.
Well, and meanwhile,
the
of course,
tenure could be decades.
and meanwhile, we kind of need to turn this climate change around in about the next decade or so and get headed in the right direction. So we don't actually have a lot of time as a nation to, to
Move
do all
forward.
this other
As
stuff.
a world.
And he doesn't believe in climate change.
Yeah.
He thinks it was
It's
invented
just-
by the Chinese, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
he said it's a hoax
It's a
invented by
hoax.
the Chinese,
Yeah.
who right now are cranking out solar panels as fast as they possibly can,
But he uses that, and then he really plays to, when he said, "I love the uneducated." You can't argue, because I'll bring your jobs back. I'll get in there and teach those Chinese government officials how to negotiate. Okay, can you really?
well, yeah.
I mean, right or wrong, we're tied to the Chinese by the hip, because they can't threaten to say they won't buy any more bonds. Really?
No, because
Then what happens to your economy?
Right.
yeah, right. I mean, we have this codependence relationship that is very uneven and very
Sure.
unbalanced and unhealthy in some ways.
I would like to
but
see it pulled back a little bit towards us.
I'd like to see it a little more even.
That's
where
what I'm
instead
saying.
of-
Right now,
instead
I
of-
feel like it's tilted their way too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, it's like the thing of ban all Muslims. If he said it in a way to say, look, as you say, there's a modicum of commonality that we have to
Right.
hit. I'm not going to be able to go in and just say, okay, listen to me, you're building a wall and you're paying for it. You're right. But there's got to be ways that we can discuss. Right now, it's 70-30. I'd like to see it at least to
Let's get to
55-45 or 60-40.
Yeah.
I think that Hillary has the ability, at least, to develop relationships with other countries in our best interest. And I think as Secretary of State, she has at least set the stage for that. They have, I think globally, there's more respect for her than there is for Trump. So just starting out, if you're a president, he's starting behind the 8 ball, given how he's presented himself. And what's that going to mean for us in trying to move forward with any kind of business?
But a lot
any
of
kind
people are worried that the deals we've been negotiating, like you said, get it back to 60-40, at least get it. mean, the Iranian deal just doesn't seem to be something we can be proud of.
The Iranian deal
It's a
is
good deal.
is a negotiated compromise between hostile parties, neither of whom had won a complete victory over the other. So obviously, that it being a compromise, there are going to be things in it that both sides don't like. This deal is very humiliating for the hardliners in Iran, who have had to allow all their centrifuges to be removed and their breeder reactor to be filled in and their enriched uranium to be stored outside their territory. And so it's not perfect. You know, we've had to go and pay them back all kinds of money that we owed them that dates back from the days of the Shah, that we've been holding on to because of this hostile relationship that we've had. And so it's, you know, there are things that to not like about it on both sides, but it's certainly much, much better than the alternative. The alternative was war.
Yes.
And that would not be a folk dance. Iran has 3 times Iraq's population and 4 times its land area. And we would have, and it would have been necessary to go in there with a ground invasion to shut down their nuclear program. And that would have meant occupying with hundreds of thousands of troops for the foreseeable future.
See, and I look at it differently, Rand, I
Yeah.
really do. That would have meant taking my children.
Exactly. And
That's right.
that's
At
the
the end of the
consequence.
day, I
That's
hate
right.
to be so
But that is what it is.
narrow-minded, but I sit there and say, wait a minute.
This would have meant drafting a lot of young people.
Yeah, taking our kids, putting them in harm's way.
That's right. So
That's right.
this is a better deal than you think. We are not. Nobody's going to war. You know, we've gotten their ability to make nuclear weapons out of the way.
Years ago, a president had to decide whether he'd sacrifice foreigners or 500,000 American boys and girls in invading Japan.
Yep.
And to this day, as much as I can't stand the idea of dropping something that killed 100,000 people or more in Hiroshima,
Yeah.
I got to admit, if it was our kids versus people who attacked us, I
After
can't
a
feel
war
bad.
that had already killed 50 million people.
Yeah, but just
And-
the whole concept.
Yeah.
Where I get stuck is if Iran did develop nukes and attacked a third country, let's face it, Israel,
Or Saudi Arabia.
or
both.
Saudi, or Kuwait,
Yeah.
or the Emirates,
Right.
okay, would we launch?
Well,
Good question.
that's a real question. Who do you want making that decision?
I know.
Good point. But see, you see
know?
what I'm saying? I
Right
don't
now, the
believe we'd
choices
send.
for people to make that kind of decision, the ones on the table, are Hillary and Donald.
So who would you feel best with?
Yeah. And that's probably the biggest thing that people are holding against. Because, you know, this idea is going to launch on everybody. No.
No.
No, once you're launched, the whole world goes up.
Right.
But it's pretty
But-
clear that he hasn't thought through this in
No,
any
and I
detail.
never
Or he doesn't
worried.
have a remedial understanding on the relationships over there and what's
But
going
candidly, I
on.
never worried about Putin launching on us or Gorbachev
do,
or
at least
anybody.
No,
you
he
know
would've
Because
the
they
been
all
consequences.
know they got too much to lose.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
What I always got scared of is Libya, you know, or some country
Yeah.
doing a launch against
India
a
versus
Turkey,
Pakistan.
India versus Pakistan,
North Korea.
or North Korea. You know, I mean, it still bothers me that we don't just look at them and say, look, we're not going to play this game anymore. You live in a peninsula. Do you know what's around a peninsula? Water. Do you know what lives in water? Nuclear submarines. Don't mess with us.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, you attack us, you're gone. We won't attack you, we don't care. But you know, those kind of decisions are the ones that scare me. Not, you know, mutually assured destruction. I don't believe for a moment that Russia's going to launch
no.
500 missiles at us, because by the time they did, we'd launch them back and we're all gone.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
But
exactly.
some Looney Tune in North Korea or Tehran or somewhere
That's
launches
the real,
one.
Yep, that's the danger.
That's right.
Well, they all have the
And-
ego of
and-
Trump, like that.
And
Need to prove
Trump
themselves.
doesn't see any problem with lots of countries having nuclear weapons. he really,
He was
he's-
suggesting that we should have Japan and Saudi Arabia should probably, or perhaps should just develop nukes themselves, so we wouldn't have to be in the position of
Being the ones that decide.
of defending those
But
places.
again, what happens when they, I mean, I could see me saying, Rand, I'm really sorry I nuked your ally. I'm going to stop. But if you
Yeah.
launch on me, I got 5 more coming at you. So how many Americans you want to
Right.
sacrifice
I know,
for
it's a
your
problem,
treaty?
isn't it?
Finger on, am I going to push that button knowing
Right.
I just fried 5 American cities? I don't know. I can't see me doing it.
Yeah.
Because
That's you.
at the end of the day,
you're not
human
Trump.
life means too much, but I'm elected to, number one, take care of American lives.
Yeah.
Well, Trump doesn't have that kind of perspective. He doesn't.
God, I hope he does.
No, he doesn't.
Because if he wins,
No,
In
he
your
doesn't.
gut, do you
No.
really think he has that kind of perspective? How he's presented.
he has not demonstrated
That's
it.
right.
No, he
but
hasn't.
I certainly hope, because I think this election,
Are
I'm
you
probably
willing
all
to take
wrong.
that risk, though?
Well, but
The
I think it's
question
going to be
is-
a lot tighter, because you get out in some of those square states and they go awful red deep. If he wins, God, it's like I was not an Obama supporter, but the minute he became president, he became my president. I could not hope for him to fail. I had to
That's right.
hope he was successful. Whether I liked him or not, didn't matter. He's now our president. Whether Hillary or Donald get in, come January, they're our president.
Well, let's hope that the margin is wide enough that we don't have another Supreme Court to make the decision on who's president. I think
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow brought that up.
Yeah.
We have a balanced court. There's no tiebreaker.
Right.
So
Right. And-
we could be in
and that's
for
a big
long.
problem.
Yeah.
Well, that'll get fixed first quarter, as much as it hurts to be empty.
But until, we're talking prior to the swearing in, we're talking about what happened with Bush and Gore.
Yeah, now you got 4-4.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
You do.
So what's going to
Yeah,
happen
there's
if
no
it's
there's no
close?
tiebreaker.
Yeah, but you got Kennedy. I mean, you got 1 or 2 that you would hope will vote for the best interest of the country.
One would hope so, but it's not as assured as it used to be.
Yeah.
Back when we had 9 justices,
Yes.
we would definitely get a decision one way or another.
That's right.
Well, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
It'll be interesting because it's only a few weeks away. And as always, I'll never ask you to vote. I know it hurts, but I'll never ask you to vote for any specific candidate. But I will beg you, get educated, pick the candidate that you believe will best serve your interest, and please get out and vote, because that's the most important thing. A while ago we were told my vote probably doesn't matter. And an election for school committee in Milford got decided by 13 votes. The last precinct came in, and that's what made the difference. I hope it won't be 13 votes. Not another hanging Chad issue.
Yeah.
But as always, please get out and vote. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. And we'll have you back in a few weeks.
And we will know
And then
what
we'll
happened.
see what
That's
happened.
right.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just